Good evening, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of the show is to bring in an artist each episode and to have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I highly encourage all viewers to comment and ask questions to the artist. The idea of doing this show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live music together right now, I wanted a place where music lovers can easily join and converse with artists and to see more of a personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening will be in English, and the shows that broadcast during your morning time is in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese interviews too. After the live stream, you can click on the subtitle button somewhere around here and listen in Japanese and read it in English. I've started the show since May every day, and this is show number 74. I'm very excited for all the guests that have joined us and the guests that are still coming up in the future dates. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since we on this side cannot hear you applaud, I would like to ask you all to use the comment screen and use clapping emojis, or you can write clap, 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 or you can even just say a quick hello and say hi to our wonderful guest today. That will be wonderful if you can join us in our conversation. So please welcome Maestro Jerry Junkin. Ta-da.
Greetings.
Hello.
Hello, Keitaro. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Very well. How are you?
Yes, looking forward to this.
Fantastic. Where are you quarantining right now?
Well, we are hunkered down at home here in Austin, Texas. So trying to make the best of it.
Wonderful. We already have Mr. Dave Lake saying hello, and then Gigi Snorwood saying hello, Jerry.
I know who that is. Yes.
Excellent.
Good to see everyone. Right.
Great. For our viewers, I just want to introduce how Jerry and I know each other. And we actually met by coincidence when I was conducting Fort Worth Symphony last 2 summers ago, or last summer, or in the springtime. And at the same time, there was a band conference in Texas.
Right.
And we were all at the same hotel. And so I saw, wonderful composers that I've always wanted to meet, like Michael Dougherty here in the picture, and Frank DeKelly, and many others. And then there was, of course, you there with the Dallas Wind. So I got the chance to meet the one amazing maestro of the wind ensemble, which is Jerry Junkin, who I've seen your concerts many a times in Japan, but I never just had an opportunity to get to meet you. So I was very excited to meet you. And this is us in Japan.
Right. At Senzoku Gakuen with our friend Nagoya Takezawa-san.
Takezawa-san. Yes. After we met in Texas, you were coming to Senzoku that December or January, sometime in the winter, because clearly we're wearing more layers than earlier. But we got to see each other in Tokyo, so this was very
early December. That's right.
Yeah, very excited about that. So, anyways, excellent. More hellos from Onsby Rose.
Yes, good to see you.
Some hellos from Japan.
Excellent. Amos from Hong Kong.
Great. Amos and Kenneth from Texas A&M University. Thank you. Well, if you have any questions for Jerry, please do ask as we go through the show. Oh, Kimberly Campbell says hello to both of us.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jerry, so let's talk about Gershwin, Someone to Watch Over Me. Tell us a little bit about what's so special about this particular recording that we're about to watch.
Well, there's several things about it. There are two soloists. This version was performed. This was at a concert in Austin with the University of Texas Wind Ensemble. Let's see, in May. It was our final concert of the year, a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And the two soloists are Ryan Anthony and Jens Lindemann. And many of you know, both of them were in the Canadian brass together. Ryan was for a number of years the principal trumpet, amazing miraculous principal trumpet of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and lost recently a battle to multiple myeloma. He had been diagnosed a little over 8 years ago.
Right.
At the time of his diagnosis, he was told life expectancy was probably a year to 18 months, something like that. And Ryan was this just amazing fighter and the nicest guy you would ever meet. And so inspiring in absolutely every way. And he had been given a diagnosis the previous January that he was probably in his last year. Well, of course, Big Ryan, he prolonged that also by at least another year. But we put some things together. We had collaborated several times, and I changed a program that we had previously planned. And so Ryan and Jens and Pete Meekin, who had written several things for Ryan, all came to Austin. And this was an amazing week because Ryan was very ill at that time with an infection due to a depleted immune system. And so the concert was actually in doubt. The concert was on a Sunday afternoon. And on that Friday, we weren't sure whether he was going to even be able to come or not. And he had convinced his doctor that this was just something he had to do. And so his doctor said, the only way you can go to Austin, you can't fly, you've got to be driven there or drive yourself. But the only way I'll allow you to go is if you come in and get an infusion of antibiotics for like 3 hours on that Friday, which he did. So he came in, he missed the Friday rehearsal. So Jens did the rehearsal with us on Friday. And then on Saturday, Jens already had a commitment, so he wasn't there. So Ryan, we had an extra rehearsal so we could go through Ryan's part. And he was such a hero and such a trooper. And he spoke to the students, and he was always so honest about his situation, and is really touching. And then to play so beautifully, because he hadn't had a horn on his face in I don't know how many weeks at that point. He was literally on life support 5 days before this performance. And then he came in, he did a 2-hour master class, worked his tail off, and we stayed up. You know, he would, in typical Ryan fashion, you know, okay, well, I'll have one drink at the end of the day, but, you know, I really have to take it easy and stuff. You know, as they're flashing the lights on and off at 2 a.m., you know, he's still there with us. So it was a really special time. So this performance was an encore with Ryan and Jens together again.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that was a concert that I was so pleased to do, not only for Ryan, but for our students.
Yes.
For them to be a part of that, for them to hear his story, to hear him talk. I remember he asked someone, or really asked the ensemble, so I don't know how many of you know someone who has had cancer. Well, of course, virtually every hand goes up, and I think, and so many people wrote to me, so many members of the ensemble wrote to me afterwards, just saying that was a concert that they'll never forget, and how inspired they were by him. So one of the things that I love is trying to bring in artists, to for our students who are of the highest possible level, and certainly both Ryan and Jens were that.
Most definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that video. It's wonderful. I want to transition the conversation to talking about sort of your upbringing, your introduction to music, how you came about doing music, and in your turning point in your career, choosing conducting, and how you caught the conducting bug.
Right. I think I came to it a bit naturally because my father's a high school band conductor.
I see.
So in Victoria, Texas, where I grew up. So I was going to band concerts in the womb, and just always grew up with it. So it was just something that I loved. I loved nothing more when I was a kid than to go to the band hall with my dad and just hang around all of the big kids, and all of that stuff. And so at first it was just something that was fun, but then later on it became something much more serious. I started playing the piano when I was 6, and then eventually started playing the clarinet, was in his high school band. And I think I failed to realize at the time what a great musician he was. I just thought everybody's high school band played the Hindemith Symphony in B flat and the Schoenberg theme and variations. Opus 43. I just thought everybody did that, I didn't, and I knew a lot about bands even then, but I just didn't realize. And also all of the repertoire that we covered, because this was not a band that just played 3 pieces all year. I mean, we covered a lot of repertoire. So that's something that I gained a much greater appreciation for later, I think.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you were a clarinet player.
Yeah. Back in the day. Before being forced into retirement. Yeah.
I see. Wonderful. And then how does did you, I'm assuming that you went to college in clarinet?
Yes, I went. My goal was to be the world's greatest high school marching band director. So I went to the University of Texas, where I'm now teaching, and studied there for 4 years. And then I did everything that I tell my students now not to do. So I went directly into a master's degree program. Times were different then, but I had an assistantship both in clarinet and in conducting.
Gotcha.
And part of that involved working with the marching band at Texas. And so then the following year, I had a quirky opportunity, just, one of these things that fell in my lap, of actually staying at Texas and taking a 1-year position to be the assistant marching band director.
Okay.
And then that 1 year turned into a second year, turned into a third year. By that time, the itch that I had to conduct was like fully inflamed, so I had to scratch it in a big way.
Gotcha. I'm assuming your upbringing, your father would have been your biggest influence for becoming conductor, but did you get a chance to conduct while you were in high school in marching band?
Not really. I didn't. I did put some groups together, I will say, and conducted, some things on my own. But then, when I came to Texas, I played in the wind ensemble there, conducted by Tom Lee, who just recently, a few years ago, retired at UCLA. Who was an amazing musician, an amazing musical influence for me. And there's so many people that. Also, my beginning conducting teacher was a man by the name of A. Clyde Roller, who was the orchestra conductor at Texas at that time. He was actually the second conductor of the Eastman Wind Ensemble after Mr. Fennell. Before Donald Hunsberger. Then he conducted the Eastman Philharmonia. Then he went other places, ended his career at Texas. He was a wonderful beginning conducting teacher because he was so focused on technique. I think I didn't appreciate that at the time, but I'm so glad that I spent time with him. And then if I had to say that a seminal event for me was attending the first in a long while. They had a couple earlier, but attending a College Band Directors National Association conducting symposium in the summer held at the University of Northern Colorado, and H. Robert Reynolds from the University of Michigan was the lead teacher. And that just, was that was so compelling that week. I just like, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is the guy I want to study with. And so that's why I left Texas to go to Michigan to study with Mr. Reynolds. And then another example of being in the right place at the right time, Carl St. Clair was moving from the band area into the orchestra area, and they thought they had his load covered another way. And so just a couple of weeks before classes were going to start, Mr. Reynolds called me to his office and asked if I would put off working on the doctorate and be on the faculty instead. So I sort of filled Carl's role, what he had been doing, conducting the concert band, the chamber winds, and the Michigan Youth Band, and helping teach the undergraduate conducting class, which I didn't realize at the time that was Elizabeth Green's conducting class.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes better what you don't know, right? So,
I guess so. Just stepping, you're stepping the footsteps of the legends.
Right. Yeah. And that was an amazing 2 years for me. All of those people were and Larry Ratcliffe came in the second year. We've had a lifelong friendship. We just were texting back and forth today. All these people that became so important in my life, and were huge influences both personally and musically. And then the second year I was at Michigan, this was the time where there was this enormous project that Bob Reynolds had put together with Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. So Stockhausen and his entourage came to Ann Arbor for a month, I think. And then we went to the Michigan Symphony Band went to Europe for 6 weeks, I think it was, maybe 8 or 8 weeks. I don't know. It was a long time, but it was just an amazing time with this La Scala Opera House production of his opera Samstag aufs Licht, and the Michigan Symphony Band played a big role in that, one scene of it. So there are so many things that happened in those 2 years. It was just astounding. Wow. And literally, as we were, my wife and I, and our daughter was 4 months old when she went on the trip too. As I'm putting my key in the door of our apartment, coming back to Ann Arbor, the phone was ringing. It was Bill Ludwig, who at that time was the bassoon teacher at University of South Florida, was the chair of the church committee there, and they had a director of bands opening, and then I ended up going there for 4 really great years.
That's fantastic. Do you remember the first piece that you conducted in a public performance?
I do, as a matter of fact. When I was in high school, I put this, why I did it, I don't know, but it was the Il Guarni Overture.
Oh, okay.
So a transcription of that. I think it was for an event where that was an appropriate thing, but it was this group that was put together, and I ended up conducting that. Not knowing what I was doing. Absolutely not knowing what I was doing, but getting through somehow.
It is high school conducting.
Right.
I graduated from Interlochen, and my band. The reason why I got into conducting was because of Fennell, because he used to spend a lot of time at Interlochen, and I was able to spent a lot of time with him right before he passed, and just learned so much about score study and bringing the composer's intentions to life, and just the way he made music. Yeah.
We spent a lot of time together the last few years of his life because of the Dallas Winds connection. Yeah. And those are memories that I'll always treasure.
Definitely. I think this would be a great transition to go into the Dallas Winds. Tell us a little about the ensemble, and then you've been there for quite some time now. So
yeah, what is it, 26 years, something like that. I never would have guessed that. And there's so many things, and I look back at it, you think, okay, well, this led to this led to that. This, it's just amazing, this business of being in the right place at the right time, because Howard Dunn, who was a friend, Howard was a friend of my father's. I had known Howard for many years. Well, he was the first conductor, obviously, of the Dallas Winds, the founding conductor. and but only conducted that group for about 5 years, unfortunately, because he died of cancer, and I think only 18 months after he was, first diagnosed or something, right as the group was beginning to take off. So it was a very sad thing because everyone adored Howard. He was this literally larger than life figure. I mean, he was a big man, but a really wonderful, elegant conductor. So the group, that was a real shot to the solar plexus, obviously, for the Dallas Winds when Howard passed away. So they, for 2 seasons, had guest conductors and had local people filling in, but they brought people in from all over and called me to come conduct a concert. I was happy to do. I was just happy to come help out. And I had no idea that what I was actually doing was a job interview. I didn't know that.
Did they not tell you, or what?
No, and I don't know that they were making that public anyway. I think they were just sort of kicking the tires with these various guest conductors who were coming in. And so at the end of it, when Kim Campbell approached me about being the artistic director, I was thankful that I did know it, because I probably would have messed it up somehow. I would have been nervous, more nervous than I was. Yeah. So anyway, but that then prompted a lot of other stuff for me. The Dallas Winds connection has been really wonderful. And I love conducting those players. I love, we play in the Meyerson Symphony Center. We have this recording relationship with reference recording. So there's, what's not to love about it? It's been fantastic for me. And it's helped every other thing in my life too, as far as music making goes, so it's helped what I do at UT. It's led to other opportunities. I'm sure I wouldn't have had the opportunity in Hong Kong had it not been for Dallas. There's so many things, that are spin-offs from that.
Yeah, I want to make sure everyone who are watching knows how to get to the Dallas Winds website. And then you're doing on live stream concert.
Right. This is a recital. Daniel Kelly, who's in the trumpet section, that's the Dallas Winds website, which you are kind enough to show right now. And there's a series of summer serenade concerts that are taking place. Saxophone Quartet did one. There's several others that are scheduled. So we're trying to keep the music going, and these are all online, obviously.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And people can access it by dallaswinds.org. And I'll put it on the YouTube comments that everyone is commenting on right now. Several comments from our viewers already, which is that Clyde's brother Dale was my first piano teacher in Amarillo. Small world. Yeah. From Kenneth Williams, saying that, you coming to Florida gave me a privilege to becoming your student and change my professional life. That's wonderful.
Very nice. Yeah.
Dave Lake, Dave is a radio host at Savannah, where I'm the music and artistic director of Savannah Philharmonic, and he is saying that he put your John Williams album a while back in his show. I love your John Williams album. I really do. It's fantastic.
There is a bar in Tokyo, the Bar Faru, which is in Shinjuku, that has a copy of it and plays it loudly.
Really?
Yes.
I need to figure out where that place.
We'll have to talk about that. It is a very, as bars there tend to be, very tucked away sort of little spot.
Yes. Oh well, it's Shinjuku. It's right. Very much so. I have there's a question saying, do you remember what was on the program for that first Dallas Winds concert that you quote unquote auditioned?
I do. Johann de Meij's Lord of the Rings, I know, was the big piece. For that first one, actually, I think what she's talking about is the one where it was the audition that I didn't know about, because that was all marches. So they asked me to do it was in the month of March, and so they asked me to do a concert that was all marches. And so I didn't want to do just a bunch of military marches. So it was all marches of all different types. Intimate March from the Symphonic Metamorphosis, Elsa's Procession to the Cathedral of Wagner, second movement of the Morton Gould Symphony, the Marches movement, plus some standard march things. But I think if I thought about it for a second, I could recreate that program.
Fantastic. Wonderful. memory. Because we do so many concerts, it just kind of like, it becomes a mush.
It does. Right.
Takes a moment to remember. Would you tell us a little bit about your activities at, your wonderful tenure that you've had at University of Texas, 30 plus years, right?
30, I think 32, if I'm figuring it correctly.
Oh, amazing. Tell us a little bit about your program and the students that you have there.
Well, it's first of all, I love my job, so and we'll have I'm sure a separate COVID-19 discussion at some point. But when all is right with the world, then it's just such a wonderful place. It's such a wonderful community. I love my colleagues. I mean, it's a fantastic place to go to work every day. And I certainly I adore my students of all type, my graduate conducting students, but also just the students that I get to interact with. They're really special people, and the performance level is high and the enthusiasm is high. And I just love being a part of all of that. So
how many ensembles do you have at the university?
Oh my gosh. Well, so I only conduct one. I just conduct the wind ensemble and teach graduate conducting. That's my load, because then there's kind of an administrative component to what I do too. But there are 3 concert bands that go all year long. Plus athletic bands. There's a huge 400 member marching band plus pep band for other athletic events. But then in the spring, we add 4 additional large concert bands. So there's 7 bands going.
Wow.
A jazz band plus a percussion ensemble. And, there are certainly there are 2 symphony orchestras, there are a number of choral ensembles, jazz ensembles. So it's a big program, 700 music majors in the Butler School of Music by design. I mean, everything works, based on the number of students in studios and all that. So it works very well.
I want us to take a listen to another performance from your band. This is Corigliano, Mr. Tambourine Man. Do you have some stories to tell about this particular performance?
Well, this is with the amazing soprano Hila Plitman, who I've been honored to collaborate with on a number of occasions in several different places. She's just an extraordinary artist and musician, and she totally owns this piece. I mean, she's a Grammy winner for her performance with the Buffalo Philharmonic and Joan Valletta of this particular piece. But she is just in every way amazing, and this piece works so well as a wind ensemble piece.
Yeah, it totally does. After you told me about this recording, I listened to the whole thing, and I thought, because I was so used to the orchestra version, this works great with wind ensemble.
Verena Merzenbichler, who's one of my former DMA students, who's now at Duke University, she made this transcription. And John Corigliano told me, I mean, I don't think he would mind me. He said there are parts of this transcription that he likes better in the wind ensemble version.
Really?
The version, yeah. Yeah, but it's extraordinary. And I've had the great privilege and pleasure to work with John Corigliano on several different projects, and we've become dear friends. And anytime I get to do his music, I love it. Because he's one of the most, again, extraordinary composer musicians.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I'm gonna have us skip a little bit towards the end, which is one of the most beautiful moments of this piece.
Forever Young.
Hmm. Goosebumps. So beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And your ensemble just plays gorgeously. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Before we transition to our next conversation, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to say congratulations to one of your students.
Yes, right. Dr. Sheldon Williams. I keep forgetting to add the doctor to Dr. Williams now. But yes, he is the new director of bands, associate director of bands at West Virginia University.
Yeah,
Great. He's going to just kill it there. And he's from Florida. I mean, he taught in Florida, had a distinguished high school teaching career, then taught at New Mexico State University before coming to us into the doctoral program there. So I couldn't be more happy and pleased for him, and or also for West Virginia University, because they're getting a real star there.
Yeah, and what a great time. You'd think in this pandemic that we're going through right now, hiring is a freeze, but no, I'm glad that someone is employing and people are getting jobs. It's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I really wanted to ask you, especially to you specifically, is about wind ensemble culture in Asia versus US, because you have long history working with the Hong Kong Wind Philharmonia and then also with the Senzoku Gakuen, and just tell us a little bit about your observations when it comes to wind ensemble playing at the university level, professional level in Asia versus US.
Yeah, it's first of all, I love going there, and I've been going to Hong Kong now for I think 18 years, something like that. And Senzoku, I think this would have been year number 9, but we had that everything was tabled for this coming fall. But at any rate, I love it. There are two different situations because all Asia is not the same, though some Americans would believe that it must be. So things are very different in Hong Kong from Japan, but yet I love them both. So in Japan, it is an academic situation. Although the first time I went, it was with the Kosei Wind Orchestra, which is a professional group. So
and Fennell's former.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I began with the Senzoku right after that. And it's a different kind of system in that in the US, we rehearse 3 times a week, give a concert after, a certain number of rehearsals, then, reload and do it again. Whereas there, they only rehearse 1 day a week, 1 evening per week. So it's basically 1 concert in a semester.
Right.
But then the week that I'm there, then it's every day, rehearsal, the final run up, as they have this festival that, so all of the groups are giving concerts within the same week. Or approximately within 2 weeks, let's say, the multiple bands, but also the orchestras, etc. But I almost hate to say it because when I get there, if I wanted to, we could play the concert the first day I'm there, because they've been rehearsed so well by Ikegami Sensei, and the people who assist, that everything is beautifully prepared. The only thing we do is for that week, I just get them to play it the way that I would do it. What I'm saying. So that's that, and it's great, fun work, and I enjoy working with the students. They're wonderful. College students are the same everywhere. And in Hong Kong, it's different because it's a professional situation. And so there are some people who are members of the Hong Kong Philharmonic or the Sinfonietta, or freelancers or teachers, so that's what makes up that group. So that's more akin to the Dallas Winds, 4 rehearsals and then a concert. So it's a 2 different situations entirely, but both very good. And the artistic level, of course, with Japanese bands, I don't even need to say anything about it. Everyone knows how high the standard is and how beautifully the students play there.
It's interesting for me because like I'm born and raised in Japan. I didn't go through the Japanese school system.
Right.
But then I did most of my training in the US. And so like in Japan, wind ensemble is huge. I think it's known as one of the biggest wind ensemble cultures in the
Yes.
world. It's every 1 out of every 5 people in the population of Japan has played in a wind ensemble.
Right.
At some point in their life. But then there's a huge culture, elementary, middle school, and high school. You see all these videos of, wind ensembles in high school age playing from memory.
The All Japan band contest. Right.
And competing. But then when you get to college, that the number of wind ensemble diminishes. But then what's interesting to me is university wind ensemble is the big thing in the US. So there's like this flip-flop all of a sudden. And then when it comes to professional wind ensemble, like in Japan, I think there's like, I want to say 4 in the entire nation that is like completely full-time wind ensemble, which kind of is surprising to me when you think about just how many wind ensembles there are in the the education level, and then how few there are in the professional level.
Right. And it's interesting because in Tokyo itself, there are how many professional symphony orchestras? Like 6 or 7 or something like that?
Well, full-time 14, I think.
Yeah.
About 14 in Tokyo. So
right.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And people love it. It's in a way it's similar to I guess in the US people tire of hearing about it, but in where I live in Texas, there's such a tradition of band and wind ensemble in the public schools here. And so bands and wind ensembles are viewed as being culturally important. And they're well staffed, well funded. The teaching is excellent. I mean, the level of high school students is amazing. People from institutions from all over the world, but certainly from all over the U.S. come to Texas to recruit students,
right?
Because they know they're going to be so well trained. So that's, there are pockets in the U.S., and I shouldn't only talk about Texas, but that's just where I am right now. So I can say something about that. But I've always felt like there was this analogous situation between Texas, where I am, and Japan, because it's the same sort of thing, even though the systems are very different. The school systems are very different.
It's just very. I wish, and then when you've attended and conducted Japanese wind ensemble concerts, so like the audience is just so enthusiastic.
Yes.
It's like a rock concert. They just love it.
When we the University of Texas Wind Ensemble did a major tour in 2014, ended up going all the way around the world, but we played 2 concerts in Japan, one in Okazawa City. And then one at Senzoku, actually. And I didn't really say a lot about it to our students ahead of time, except to just say, you guys don't really understand what is getting ready to happen to you. And it was true, the mobs of people but we've got a video of the buses leaving after the concert, and all of these people lined up outside waving, and people running alongside the bus and all of that. It just sort of kind of rocked everybody's world, actually, to see that level of enthusiasm.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't give them a heads up, because what a great experience that must have been for all those students. Japan is very, very lucky to have you come back year after year to work with the high level ensembles, because it needs it. Because in the orchestra field, there's so many foreign conductors that come all the time to Japan. Every orchestra, the guest conductors are mostly foreigners, but the wind ensemble not so much. So I'm so glad that you have this relationship in Japan. Because
me too, I love it. I love going there. I love the students. I love my colleagues there at Senzoku. They've always been so nice to me, and I love the food.
Yes.
The food is spectacular, I have to say.
Most people, it's kind of an oxymoron because people are really skinny in Japan, but like what foreigners, including myself, when I go back to Japan, I just get fat and then go home because I eat so much.
It's because when you're there as a visitor, you want to try everything,
Right.
and it's all good.
And the culture of Japanese eating is nonstop. You just keep eating and eating and drinking and eating because the city doesn't sleep.
The thing I came to realize is that every place, every establishment virtually is good, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't stay in business, because people know good food there,
Yes, definitely. Well, with my guests on Music Today, we always talk about two current affairs. First one is Black Lives Matter. So please tell us how Black Lives Matter means to you and how it influences your musical activities.
Well, first of all, I totally support the movement, if we can call it that, and use the term Black Lives Matter unabashedly, with enthusiasm. And the universe, well, let me just say it this way. The United States has a difficult past. And all of us need to realize that. And I realize that I am a person who is the beneficiary of white privilege. So, whatever that means to you, I'm a beneficiary of that. There's no question about it. And also in our profession, all of us who are involved in it we benefit from white privilege. And I think a lot of it in band conducting is white male privilege too. So it goes well beyond even the issue of Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement. All these things get intertwined, but I don't want to take away from Black Lives Matter, because that in and of itself is a very important issue that we just simply have to confront. And the tragedies that have occurred for well over 200 years now, but have really finally, maybe just in the last few years, people have just had enough now. Right. And it's time to somehow take affirmative steps to rectify this situation. Yes. So whatever we can do and I don't profess to have any answers except to just educate ourselves and to know that there is an issue, and we can go into a lengthy, sort of discussion here about where that all started. And we know that slavery and all these difficult subjects to discuss have led to things, but it goes well beyond that too. And so it's time to fix this and to correct this. And so what we have to do are take affirmative steps that might just make some people uncomfortable, but it's something that we have to do and we have to confront. And as band conductors, as musicians, that means we have to examine everything. We have to examine admissions standards in universities. We have to examine who's getting scholarships to attend schools. We have to examine the programming. We have to examine the literature that's selected to be taught in classes. Just everything is now probably should be erased, almost like we start over, and we try to rectify the situation.
I'm glad that you mentioned about the repertoire we studied, because when I recall my education in the US and the history books that we gone through in high school and college and grad school, it barely touches on Black composers, like the history books, the music history books. And that already, like I'm now educated much more about the African-American composers that have produced wonderful music, but I wish I was exposed to all of that when I was in school.
Sure. Oh, me too. And this is just, everybody is a product of the generation that they were a part of, and so I can well remember being in music history classes, and there's a syllabus, and like every music history class that's ever been taught, the last 3 weeks of class are just a scramble to get through everything. So anything that happened more recently is going to just get very much short shrift. So as a colleague of mine used to say, the jazz unit ended up being, somebody holding up a picture of Louis Armstrong as everybody's exiting the class, and that was just because we ran out of time. So, but I will just tell you that I never heard Florence Price's name until 2 years ago, something like that. I'm embarrassed to say. So it's just a matter of educating ourselves.
Most definitely. I wanted to share everyone a photo of your front yard.
Right. You asked me to send you that. I try not to make a big deal of it. I just, it's just something that's important to me. So
yes. No, thank you for sharing this photo. That's wonderful. The other current affair, of course, is COVID-19, and performing music has become such a routine activity for us for so many years. I think, and you might agree with me, that we kind of took for granted that there's always an audience. That there would, whenever we perform, we never really thought about. Of course, we advertise, we put the posters up at schools and stuff, but there was always an audience, right? So then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, performing in public has become extremely difficult. How has your attitude towards music and performing for an audience changed in these past few months?
Well, it's kicking the gut, as it was for everyone. So our last concert, the last concert I conducted was on March the 6th here in Austin. And it was, it was a wonderful concert, but we were supposed to then begin on the next project right after that. I was going to conduct 2 more concerts in Dallas. I was going to go to Hong Kong and then all these summer engagements. And of course, everything came to a screeching halt. That next week, that's when, I think it was that weekend that the South by Southwest Festival was canceled here in Austin, which is a big international music, film, technology festival, which attracts, thousands and thousands of people to Austin. And that was canceled. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, that seems like an overreaction. Really? Is that, because I was, we didn't realize the severity of that. So everything just stopped. So it's out of camera range, but I have over here a stack of scores that was going to be my, project for the next few months, all of the engagements. That stack of scores is still in the same place. And I would like to tell you I've been earnest and I've memorized them all and I'm ready to go for whenever we start. But that really hasn't happened because I realized that we're in something that we don't know exactly how it's going to end. Right. So all of the program planning, I had an entire season, obviously at UT. I had an entire season with the Dallas Winds. I had programs, the other places. We had talked about programs in Japan and in Hong Kong that are just not going to happen now.
Right.
So with UT, then the emphasis became, well, maybe we could do smaller things. Maybe we could do chamber works. Even that right now, we don't know if that's going to be able to happen just because of the situation that we're in. So I miss it, of course, immensely. I miss the players and I miss seeing all my friends in Dallas. I miss seeing, our students. And I feel terrible for students that this is happening while they're in school, but there is no way to make it good for them except the knowledge that everyone in the world is in the same situation right now. So it becomes how you deal with it. That becomes the important thing. Do you just sort of curl up in a ball in the corner or do you charge forward and try to make the best out of it?
Exactly. Right. No, it really hit me hard when in May when I realized that millions of students that were graduating high school and college couldn't do a graduation, and all that the years of studying and memories and accomplishments, they had to celebrate in this new way of celebrating graduation, but still it's different,
Sure.
And for them to be incoming freshmen at a university or transferring to a different school, that experience is going to be different. And especially for music students, how the heck do we do ensembles when we don't know what to do about distancing?
Right. And right at this moment, because we don't know, can we even do it at all? I mean, what could constitute an ensemble experience?
Right.
And I've talked to some people who are particularly, I don't know what the word. Yeah, they're just maybe morbidly depressed. I don't know what the the right way to categorize it. Who say, "Well, we'll never come back. It'll never be the same again. We're going to have to adapt to an entirely different paradigm now." And I'm not quite that pessimistic about it. I think that we will come back. We will have ensemble performances for audiences again. But I do think it's going to take a period of time. This is not going to be something that, even if there's a vaccine and the numbers go down there, significantly, it's still going to be a while, and we're going to have to. There are some things that I think we're going to have to confront with our audiences as far as how do people enter a concert hall? What kind of contact is there? Do they have a physical program in? Are they handed a program anymore by an usher? All those sorts of things. And everybody's thinking about the same things right now.
Right.
Those concerts are going to look different in 2 years than they look 6 months ago.
I'm talking to you today from Japan simply because I couldn't go back home to Florida when the pandemic hit, and not really do I want to go back to Florida at this moment. But despite that, 2 weeks ago, the emergency has been lifted from the emergency status had been lifted in Japan. So concerts are now back into operation, and then at 50% capacity with orchestras. So I've already conducted 3 concerts and one with an audience. So to answer how we're doing in Japan, like concerts are under 1 hour. There's no intermission. On the ticket, they exactly tell you what time you're allowed to enter. So people know how to get into. So there's no cluster before in the lobby. There's no concession. And then there's also instructions on how to exit on the ticket. So people exit in orderly fashion. Everyone has to wear masks, but mask is sort of mandatory in Japan anyway. So there's no questions about that. And then on stage with the orchestra, there's 2 variations. Some orchestras require everyone to wear masks except for the winds and the brass. And then I just conducted Yomiuri 2 days ago, and they said, no, you don't need to wear masks on stage. But only when you talk, and only when you enter, you have to wear masks. So I didn't quite understand that, but we all wore masks, wearing masks and walking in. And then once we got to our seat, we took it off.
Interesting.
And so I've been in 2 studies right now, scientific studies, and to experiment how dangerous it is in rehearsal. And as long as the conductor is wearing mask in rehearsal, they say it's not dangerous. We did multiple different social distancing activities to see if ensembles are comfortable playing or not in the social distancing. Wind ensemble hasn't started back yet, but as of August 1st, they're allowed to operate. And as far as the government has said, you can do wind ensembles are allowed to do concerts from August 1st. So at 50% capacity audience-wise. So they're releasing a national study by the doctors that that I was part of, saying that, it's not as dangerous as people think. And what was interesting was it was more dangerous backstage than on stage. When it came to wind ensemble, because everyone, people haven't seen each other in 4 months. They want to talk, and to avoid that is so difficult.
And this is the situation with Broadway theaters, because the pits are small, but also the backstage areas are very small. And so and of course the audience is a concern also, and for them, they have to generate a certain amount of revenue, and it's just impractical with 1/3 or 1/2. It's interesting because there are a couple of important research projects that are going on right now. One that is the first wave, I suppose you would say, of release of data has come from the University of Colorado, a study that was being done by Shelley Miller and a colleague of hers at the University of Maryland, which actually says just the opposite of what your study says, that that there's the aerosol as we might guess, that with wind it was dealing specifically with wind instruments and singers. And that's going to be, we all know that's maybe more problematic.
A big problem. Yeah,
that's going to happen later. But that the directional bell front instruments, trombone, trumpet, are particularly problematic, but also interestingly, clarinet. And that one of the problems is not only the way the aerosols are dispersed, but the way that they linger in the air. And this is a problematic thing obviously for student groups, where you have a rehearsal room where there's a group, they rehearse, and then people leave, and then immediately 10 minutes later there's another group that has filled the room and they're supposed to start rehearsing. Those sorts of things are actually quite dangerous, because those aerosols from the previous group are still in that room for up to maybe a long enough period of time to make a 10-minute passing period impractical. Right. So that's both of those. There's another study from Colorado State University, a parallel study. They're unrelated, so in a way that's good, that they're not related studies, and that one will be coming pretty soon too. So those both will be telling as they relate to bands.
Yeah, most definitely. And then I think as far as rehearsal and cleansing the air, that kind of attitude, there has been stricter rules now of like how much you can rehearse, and then we all have to clear the stage. And all the doors are open. These air circulation things are in place right now. And then we are told when we're allowed to come back on stage. But at one point, like we know it's dangerous. Like we're not oblivious to that. But then the other side of the factor is people need to survive and they need to perform. And I think the numbers right now in the entire country where it's kept at the 200 as far as people getting the virus.
Right. So see, this is the problem from an American who is looking at this, is our numbers are so out of control right now.
Yeah.
And people will say, oh, but the US has a larger population. Yeah, but the percentage is still way out of whack.
Yeah.
And not headed in the right direction either. So that's another issue.
Yeah. No. Wear masks. Like yes. I know, like I couldn't say it any better. Just wear masks.
Right. And why? And this is one thing that Asian culture. I don't know. I don't want to take too much time here, but I know when SARS happened, I was supposed to conduct in Hong Kong, and that concert was canceled because SARS, the outbreak. So then that was rescheduled for the fall. So I go back. The change that I saw in Hong Kong culture was shocking to me, because everyone went along with it. So there was an edict. The first time that I went to Hong Kong, I was kind of appalled at how much spitting there was. That was just a part of people would just spit wherever. And then all of a sudden there's signs up the next time I go saying no spitting, and you never saw it again. It's just like it stopped. And there were Purell or not to give a product endorsement, but there were those sorts of stations everywhere, So it was just like, well, people told us this is what we need to do, so this is what we're going to do. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work like that in the United States right now.
Not really. And then I live in Savannah, Georgia, and we're not doing so well right now there either. I live in the worst two states, right? Savannah, Georgia, and Florida. When it comes to
hold that thought.
I'm like, please, just like I want to do concerts, so let's get let's fix the situation. But
as we say, Texas said, "Hold my beer." So,
well, Jerry, thank you so much for sharing, wonderful music, first of all, and all the insights and just all the activities that you're doing. And it's amazing that, many of your students, they're so blessed to have you, not just in Texas, but also in Japan too. And
I'm serious about this. I'm blessed to have them as a part of my life. They keep me, in spite of how I look, they keep me young, so.
You are looking young. Don't worry. I like the COVID-19 shave, the beard.
Yeah, I know. That just means I've given up.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and then please stay safe. And hope to see you.
It's great to see you again, and hopefully we'll see each other, if not here in the U.S. and Japan again.
Definitely, for sure. And for those of you watching, thanks for watching, and then please support this program and do share this video. It's on archive, so please feel free to just share the word and come join us again sometime soon. All right, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.
Thank you for watching. please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。